Happy New Year, good people. It's a Crippled Critic, and this week I want to talk about the game Let It Die. So Let It Die is a free-to-play beat-em-up horror game exclusively for the PS4. It is similar stylistically to other dungeon-crawling games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne. So Let It Die takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where a giant tower known as the Tower of Barbs has appeared. The tower is filled with monsters, yet many people have tried to reach the top, where it is said rare treasure resides, as well as spiritual enlightenment. Still, no one who's climbed the tower has survived. Let It Die was published by Japanese studio Grasshopper Manufacture. The lead director was a man named Goichi Suda, otherwise known as Suda51. Suda51 is well known for making campy and bizarre games with over-the-top action. Some of the games he's worked on are No More Heroes and Lollipop Chainsaw. When making Let It Die, Suda51 wanted to make a game with super action and asynchronous online connectivity. This would also be one of his first attempts at making a game with a survival horror theme, though he has made games with horror elements in the past. In early development, Let It Die looked very different. Back in 2012, it even had a different name, then being called Lily Bergamo. Although Let It Die kept the same action-oriented feel, there were many changes that happened to the game over the years. Unlike in the current build of the game, where you're given the option to customize your character, you were originally only able to play as one female character. It also seemed like the original game was going to take place in a more traditionally Japanese location. There apparently was going to be a companion app for mobile devices that was going to come along with the game, but that was scrapped later in development. One last thing I want to talk about the development of the game is the composer of the soundtrack. I think it's important because I don't see a lot of people mention it, but the composer of Let It Die is a man named Akira Yamaoka. Many will know Akira Yamaoka as a video game legend because he composed the soundtrack for almost all of the Silent Hill games. He's known to be put into a sort of hard music genre with disturbing sounds and industrial noises. Although Akira is mostly known for his work with Silent Hill, he previously collaborated with Suda51 on another game called Shadows of the Damned. This time around in Let It Die, Akira is composing some of the songs, but he's also collaborating with over 100 rock and metal bands from Japan. Akira has said this was an attempt to give a platform to some of the local, lesser-known Japanese bands. Kind of a unique idea to put this into a video game, so I really like it. Anyway, now on to the controls of Let It Die. So the controls of the game are very limited. I'll give you a brief look at what they are, but as you can tell, you can't change any of it. It's strange because if you look, you can see not every button on the controller is utilized, so I'm not sure why they couldn't give us a little more leeway when it came to customizing the controls. You'll mostly be pressing the attack buttons, which are L2 and R2, but unfortunately you'll be required to press the touchpad to do more important things like heal yourself with healing items. In the options menu, you're given the ability to change the camera's axis, but I think it would have been better if you had a camera that followed your movements, instead of you having to move the camera manually, especially in an action game like this. For many disabled gamers with fine motor skill impairments, I think you'll have some problems playing this. I recommend using the PS4's accessibility options in order to change the buttons to your liking. That's what I did. So like I said before, Let It Die's gameplay is very similar to Dark Souls, but I was never a big fan of Dark Souls, mainly because of how difficult they were. The Dark Souls and Demon Souls games required you to memorize very specific enemy patterns in order to survive, and if you died just once in those games, you lost all the items you collected and had to start from the very beginning of the level. Thankfully, Let It Die is a lot more forgiving. There's no difficulty setting to choose from in Let It Die, but enemies appear at random, so there's no need to memorize their movements. In Let It Die, you're given up to 3 lives before you lose everything, thanks to a wacky insurance salesman they put in the game. It was unclear to me whether you could potentially stay alive forever as long as you paid your insurance, but I didn't have enough money to find out.
Many people die in this tower in countless numbers of cruel and unusual ways, and we at Direct Hell Insurance are here to support those on the brink of death. Now, allow me to explain our insurance plan for you.
If you need more help in Let It Die, though, the game offers a sort of bank to put some of your items in case you die. You can go back as another character and use the items you saved. This reminded me of a similar feature in the game Zelda Majora's Mask. So as the name of the game suggests, you'll be dying a lot, but Let It Die has a unique feature that makes it so when you die, it doesn't just affect your playthrough. It's an always online game, so when your character dies for good, that particular avatar will appear in someone else's game as a potential enemy that can kill them. Yeah, your character becomes a sort of demonic zombie that can also appear in your playthrough. It becomes a tough enemy, but if you're able to defeat your old self, you can get all the other items that were left on that corpse, the ones you left behind. Checkpoints in Let It Die are unfortunately rare, but once you hit one, you're able to go back to the points in the level even if you've died, which is nice. So fighting Let It Die doesn't take too much strategy, although you're given the ability to roll and dodge enemy movements. At the beginning of the game, you're given no clothes and no weapons. You fight bare knuckle until you fight enough enemies to take their stuff. Most of the armor and weapons are acquired through these means. So guns in Let It Die are probably the most sought after weapon because they're fast and easy to use. If you can believe it, Let It Die has a sort of auto-aim that you use when you're using a gun. You are able to manually aim the gun if you want, but as long as you're facing the general direction of an enemy, it'll automatically fire at it. This accessibility feature isn't very obvious. In fact, I had to learn the hard way how to use it because it seemed like the game was actively trying to hide it, but it is available. As for audio, I would say gamers with hearing disabilities shouldn't have much trouble at all playing Let It Die. The game does have a nice rock soundtrack, but most of the style and atmosphere of Let It Die comes from the visuals, not the music. Enemies will occasionally sneak up on you, but I didn't notice any audio warning anyway. It has a great subtitles option you can turn on and off, with big font and a nice dark background automatically behind the subtitles to make them stand out. This is good because sometimes in Let It Die, the music can be a little louder than the dialogue, so the subtitles really help. Visually speaking, the game is kind of dark, but you can change the brightness in the options menu. There could be a slight concern for colorblind players just because of the way Let It Die displays the stamina. Stamina is shown through how visible your heart is on your character model. As you use more stamina, your heart turns from a yellow color to a more purple color. Still, from what I could tell, your heart also grows in size as your stamina weakens, so color isn't the only way you can tell when your stamina is depleted. The style of Let It Die is where it will probably have the most appeal for most players. Like a lot of Suda51's games, Let It Die has really over-the-top action and gore that I think goes well with the campy humor.
I forgot to mention, my name is Uncle Death. I have a feeling we're gonna get along just fine.
Let It Die is a really awesome beat-em-up game with horror elements, and I've been looking forward to this game for a long time. It's got a pretty easy difficulty setting, but the controls are limited. Still, having the auto-aim was a much appreciated feature. If you're a fan of Suda51 and you like all of his silly and zany characters, then I definitely recommend playing this game. Or if you just like dungeon crawlers, there's a lot to enjoy from Let It Die. Alright guys, I hope you had a good holiday. I know I did, but I am so ready for 2017. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.